Hi, I'm Rachel Olson, founder of Best Mom Products, where mompreneurs share their adventures in business. Today I'm talking with Jo Ilfeld, founder of Go Strolling, an online store featuring strollers and accessories. She started her store in 2005, built it to a seven-figure business, and sold it in 2010, all while raising 3 young children. No small feat. Her current venture is Success Reboot, where she is a coach for busy professionals and entrepreneurs. Today we'll learn how Jo created and sold a successful business and why she decided to take her experience and become a coach to help others build success in their lives. Welcome, Jo. Does that sound about right?
Oh, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Okay,
it's lovely for you to have me on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Tell everyone, what is Let's Go Strolling? How did that idea come to you? And we'll start with that and go.
Let's Go Strolling was, or it still is, though I no longer own it, but it still lives on. It is a online retail store for sort of all the best strollers, diaper bags, accessories that parents on the go need. So what we tried to do is provide a high-end boutique on the internet. What you often find is that for a lot of people, if you're in New York, you can generally find stores that have all the high-end things, or Chicago or LA. But for a lot of people, they were reading about these great products on the internet, and they really wanted them, but they couldn't find them anywhere. And they certainly couldn't find them all in the same place. So what we offered was sort of boutique level of service and real knowledge about the products with the convenience of online shopping.
Okay, so how did that come across? I remember you told me a story about when you had your child and the Bugaboo had just come out. And so let's take people back to before, because now the market is filled with very high-end strollers. But at the time that you had this idea, it wasn't. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. At the time when I was actually pregnant with my second child, the Bugaboo had sort of just come out. It was just the frog version at that time, for anyone who even knows what that is now. And it had been on Sex in the City, and it was like everyone was saying $800. Who would pay $800 for a stroller? It was unimaginable at the time. And I was just fascinated by this idea of being able to face your baby for longer than, just the sort of snap and go 3 to 6 months that's traditional. There were a couple of strollers on the market where you could face your baby, but they were really large, like pram type strollers, not something you could easily throw in the trunk or go around town with. And so, I said to my husband, I really want this. And he said, absolutely not. There's no way we are getting a Bugaboo. So, that for me, that was my challenge. And I started looking at all these strollers online and all these strollers that you couldn't find in stores, but were in Europe or different places that had them. And that was sort of how I got introduced to the market. And there's actually places called Stroller Swap and message boards on the internet where people talk exclusively about strollers. And, that was how I learned first about sort of the world of strollers. But it's also how I learned that there was a real void at that time, because there were moms who were really interested in these type of new strollers, but really couldn't find them anywhere. And even though the Bugaboo was the most visible, it wasn't the only one out there that had those features.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about how you went about building that business, both online. So you saw that there was a need for this. What was the first thing that you did? Did you do a business plan or do research? Tell me about that.
I didn't, but that would have been a great idea. And I recommend it heartily to other people. So I did have a business partner. I definitely want to mention that. And we were very close. We still are. And so it was a wonderful relationship, because we really were always bouncing ideas off each other. We were always calling each other with new ideas. We were always trying to think about how to do things. What we did do is we sort of started the business really on a hope and a prayer, and just sort of seeing how things would go. And then we went immediately to one of the biggest shows, the trade shows in the industry, called the ABC show. Mm-hmm. I'm sure most of your listeners are very familiar with it. And that's a great way. The best thing to do is to go to these shows and walk them and really get a sense of what the products are out there. And for us, it was great because we could see sort of who the products were out there, as well as sort of the competitors in terms of who else was walking the market, who else was talking to these stroller manufacturers, what were they interested in. So it was sort of market research right on the ground. so to speak.
Okay, so you went to the show. Now, don't you have to have an actual product? How does that work to be able to get into the ABC show or any of these major trade shows?
So you can be in the show basically as a number of ways now. One is as a buyer, which is how we went to the show.
Okay.
One is as a seller, which is, you're exhibiting products. The other is you can go as a media. So some people go as bloggers or as, to check out, do research. They say they have a blog, they have links to it, and they can go and check out all the competition basically by being a blogger.
Okay, so you went to the trade show. Did you make good connections there and did you already know about the buying process before you went?
No, we learned a lot about the buying process. For instance, we had no idea that if a product is marked up 100%, that's called keystoning a product. So we learned fun words like keystoning, which make you sound in the know when you're, you also learn fun terms like what the manufacturer's suggested retail price is, like what the price they want you to sell it at versus what price they'll really ding you if you sell it below, because manufacturers, it's very, dicey in the industry right now as to how much they can restrict pricing because of the, antitrust rules. So they try to keep control of their pricing, but they, they're limited by certain things, but they can signal to you certain ways that they will like you or not like you to sell their product.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so there's a set price. And so as an online retailer, did you have somebody, you made the connections at the trade show. Did you have a website at that time, or were you in the process of building it?
We did have a website. We had the website www.letsgostrolling.com. And so there was that, and we had a signed lease on a property. It wasn't a lease. It wasn't a property actually that we ended up using for our store. We didn't get our store till later, but at the time, internet marketers were not allowed at the show, so you had to have a bricks and mortar to get into the ABC. That is not the case anymore at this point, but that was the case 7 years ago or something.
Very interesting. A lot has changed. It shows how much influence online bloggers have and so forth. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about your online business, and then I want to talk to you about how you made the decision to have a retail store and what that whole process was like, because that sounds like a huge undertaking as well. So tell me the next steps in the process. You get your online store and you get it up and running, and do these manufacturers, are they drop shipping the strollers then to your customers all over the United States? How does that work?
So it really varies by manufacturer. Some of them were drop shipping. Other ones of them were not, in which case we had to take inventory. And for a long time, my living room was literally filled with strollers. It looked like a warehouse. My husband is very supportive, wonderful man. But yes, we had like a holiday party where literally like the whole back of the room, like it took like half the day for him to move them all into one space, just so we could have the party in our living room. But yes, so there was that. I also want to say, just because I think it's important that your, listeners think about this if they are thinking of retail, especially in this day and age, but even back then, it's important. Is how do you differentiate yourself? And that was something we thought a lot about with Let's Go Strolling. Like, how could we make it so that people really did come to us instead of going to, at that point, Amazon wasn't selling strollers. They are now. There's places like diapers.com now. But even back then, there were the big online stores running joggingstroller.com, I think, was the one back then. But so what we really offered was a level of personalized service that I think still is rare on the internet today, to be honest, and was definitely at that time almost unheard of. And we offered something called stroller consultations, where people could email us in with what they were looking for, what their life situation was, and we would give them recommendations of the right strollers and baby accessories for their lifestyle. And, before we grew our stock, by the end, we really had any stroller we wanted to recommend. But in the beginning, a lot of places did not want to sell to a newer retailer. They wanted you to have history and credit history. So we couldn't sell things like the Bugaboo. And I would not hesitate at that time to recommend the Bugaboo if I thought it was the best stroller for someone. So we were often recommending strollers we didn't even sell. And I think that really shows people in the marketplace that, that we didn't do it as a gimmick, but, it really demonstrates how much we cared about our customers and how much it was really important to us that they had the right products. And it sets that level of integrity that I think remained the whole time that we had the business, that we were really honest with customers. Like, that's not a really good choice for you. You can get it if you want, but that's not going to meet your needs. Or I would really recommend this one. And we would recommend lower price strollers over higher price strollers if it met our customers' needs. And I think in any business that you have, integrity is very important, and also really wanting to make a good fit with your customer is really important instead of just making a one-time sale. Mm-hmm. And that's why people would come back to us repeatedly, because we built a level of trust and relationship with our customers that was important.
Yeah, so how did you acquire your customers? Because you're an online store, and were you advertising? Was it Google AdWords at the time, or?
I was actually sort of thinking about this process recently, like, how did we do it? And literally at first it was just word of mouth. My business partner and I were both active on several mommy sort of chat boards at the time. And so people knew us through that, and then they would check out our store, or we'd suggest to someone, oh, you might want to check this out. We have it in our store if you want to take a look. So it was sort of a mix of being helpful and self-promotion. I think, there's a fine line you walk, but you can do that. And so in the beginning, it was really just word of mouth.
Okay.
And then as we grew, we had more money that we could sort of roll into advertising. And eventually we did do ads in national magazines like Pregnancy Magazine, Pregnancy and Newborn. At the time, they had something called Cookie Magazine. Lovely magazine.
I remember Cookie.
No longer exists, but it was beautiful. And, of course, manufacturers, once you're selling their products, they list you on their website. Mm-hmm. And that is also something, because they list bricks and mortar locations, and then for some manufacturers, they will list online retailers and some won't. And some they won't list all their online retailers, just the ones that do the best business. Okay. So, as we grew, then we also could get listed on their online retailers, and that would send a certain number of people who knew they wanted that stroller directly from the manufacturer's website. And then as we grew, we also did pay-per-click ads and SEO.
Okay.
Both of which I think are very helpful, but I do think it's also worth growing to a certain point before you do those kind of things, because otherwise they can really be time and money sucks.
Right. So at what point would you give the advice to somebody listening to say, I would like to hear about kind of what you think that the results were from your national ads and traditional publications versus SEO, and at what point should somebody maybe look into that more, and how much money should they have to play with to build on that in order to make it successful?
I think around the time we sort of heard the number floating around that about 10% of your revenues should go into marketing. And I don't know that we were so exact all the time, but we kept that approximation in mind. And, and I think it's worthwhile for people to keep in mind that, if they're only netting $50,000 in their business, then spending like $15,000 to do some big pay-per-click campaign does not make sense. Like, right. Let's just say it. Like, and it's even more competitive now in the marketplace of pay-per-click than it was 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I think, what makes sense is really to find the smaller places that you can advertise. Like, a lot of times there's mommy bulletins or local newspapers or smaller places that you can advertise. And it's almost a great place to test your ads out too at a lower cost. Like, what's really effective, what works, what brings people either into your store or into your website. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then moving from there.
Tell me the difference then. We'll go into the retail store as well. What did you find? Did you find different things worked for an online business versus a retail business? Brick and mortar store?
Yes. I mean, well, so probably the manufacturers who know me now would kill me. I'm here to say this, but when you're an online store, basically everyone can see what you're doing. That's the thing about online. Mm-hmm. Everyone can see it. And a lot of manufacturers are very strict about discounting that they will allow. Mm-hmm. However, when it's in your store and someone comes in and has a coupon from Bed Bath & Beyond and can you match it, then you can match it more easily. Whereas online, you can't advertise that kind of thing. So you have a little bit more leeway in store to play, but you also have higher costs.
Right.
And you have staff, and you have, rent and other things. So one of the reasons that manufacturers have been wary in the past, and I think this is starting to change, but have been wary about selling to online-only retailers, is that they have no costs, basically, so they could deep discount. And that basically destroys not only sort of the reputation of the product, but it really annoys other people who are giving it shelf space in their store and selling it for full price and talking about it. You don't want to be the one who sells the customer on something when they're in your store and then they go online and find the cheapest place on, pricegrabber.com or something.
Right.
So I think, also in store, you have an opportunity to really form a relationship with your customers in a different way than most online people do when you point, click, put in your cart, and you have no idea, if there's anyone behind there or what's thinking. And if your order works out, 90% of the time, you never have any interaction with the online retailer. Whereas in store, there's ways to really create customer loyalty, make it easy for people to shop, give kids little trinkets to play with, or have a section of toys so kids can be occupied while moms are shopping. So I think you have that ability to create a space that people want to come back to.
Right. So tell me a little bit about the decision. Why did you decide, how long were you an online store before you decided to get a retail space?
I was trying to remember that, and to be honest, I can't remember exactly when we signed that first lease, but I'm guessing it was around 9 months after we started.
Okay. And what made you decide to go into a brick and mortar location?
So there were two main reasons. One reason was that for some reason, some manufacturers, even though we were only online, were putting my address where the strollers were being shipped, basically my home address, on their website. Mm-hmm. So people were showing at my home to try these strollers that they couldn't find anywhere else. Like, they're in the Bay Area, they'd be like, oh, this place in the Bay Area. And they'd be driving, they'd think, this is a pretty residential street, but they'd ring my door. And, one time my husband called me, I think I was at Mom's group, and he's like, some guy is here to see the stroller. How do I fold it? And so, I started allowing people to come sort of by appointment to our house, and I had a little demo area of strollers. And then it was just like, this is insane. Like, I don't want people coming to my house all the time to see strollers. Like, we need to move.
Yeah.
And, and as I mentioned, my living room was full of strollers. Mm-hmm. So we needed warehouse space too. So that was sort of one reason. And the other reason is, just in terms of getting new accounts and working with new vendors, they didn't want to work. A lot of vendors didn't want to work with online-only places. Okay. So once we had a store location, we could really expand the range of products we sold.
Okay.
So it had that dual purpose. I think it's an important point, though, for your listeners to note that we didn't just rush out, sign a lease on a 2,000 square foot space, decorate it to the nines, and then hope people would come. Like, really, we started with this bare bones website and, a few different brands who would sell to us. And as we got a reputation and we sold more of those, more brands would sell to us because they heard good things about us. And we signed for a very small space. And eventually we outgrew the small space and we signed for a larger space. But we really we really didn't run the business. As I started, we sort of started on a hope and a prayer, but once we were running it, we didn't run it that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They kept in mind what costs were.
Okay. And so the undertaking of a retail store, what was that like? What was that like on your family life? What was that like with your partner? That's a much bigger commitment.
Yes. And I would say that we dipped our toes into it. We were always very mindful of the kind of family life that we wanted to have, and we wanted to have the kind of family life where we dropped our kids off at preschool and then we picked them up at 3:30, which is, when preschool or eventually school ended. And so to that mind, what we did is we called it a retail showroom. And basically we were open between the hours of 9:30 and 3 or something, ridiculous like that, or by appointment. And the by appointment allowed us to do is that that we could stay later. You know, if someone really wanted to, you know, we could sort of make plans like, okay, well, I can stay till 5:30 today. If you can come in at 5. So people could make appointments and come in off hours, but we really didn't pledge to be there more than preschool hours.
Okay. So interesting. So then how did it get to a point, I'm looking for like the turning point. So you're building this business, you started in 2005. How did you end up selling it? And was that a conscious decision? You decided, yes, I want to sell it? Or did somebody come along? Tell me about that.
So, during, the owning and running of Let's Go Strolling, I ended up having my third kid. And for anyone out there, 3 is a lot more than 2. But so, that was sort of an additional, not strain, but, an additional source of busyness in my life. And then, there were also just other family considerations as my boys were getting older and going into school. And I think for me also there was very much the sense that while I loved running Let's Go Strolling, I missed that sense of working with people that I'd had earlier, and I really wanted to return to working with other business owners and having that, and really helping other business owners grow their businesses. So my business partner and I had a long discussion, and we sort of both agreed that we wanted to, if I wasn't going to be in the business, we were going to sell the business, that she didn't want to run it without me. And I think it's important for anyone out there who is a business partner. I really, really recommend defining how you will end the business if one partner wants out when things are really good. We were extraordinarily lucky. It was not a difficult decision for us. It was easy. We stayed friends. We were still friends. But during the time that we ran Let's Go Strolling, we knew a number of other friends who were running businesses together, and all of them broke up, and it was all like a ball of flames.
Wow.
So when one person wanted out. So I really can't stress highly enough that you need to have agreements in place. Legal is best, but even if they're just written down agreements between the two of you, or how you will handle it if one person wants out or can't commit the same amount of time that they could in the past.
Right. That's a very good point, because everyone's lives are in flux and they're constantly changing. And that's interesting. I mean, you're at a point of success when you turned to your partner and said, I think I'm done with this and want to sell it. Was she just like, oh my God, had no idea? Or was it...
Well, luckily, because we are such good friends, and we're good friends both in the workplace and out of the workplace. I mean, she knew that, I'd been starting to talk for a while, like, I'm thinking of something different. I'm thinking I'd like to work with small businesses, not be, not run the small business. So it had been an idea that had been percolating for a while.
Okay.
So there was not a surprise. I didn't ambush her,
Right.
And so, so it did really work well. And
then how did you find a buyer? How did you go about that process?
Right. So what we decided is, initially we met with the Small Business Association, the SBA, which we totally recommend. And there was a guy who did this great consultation with us and was like, yes, I'll help you. That'll be great. You don't need a business broker. And so he told us what we needed to put together. So I started putting things together, and he said I could run things by him. And I would send him things, and he wouldn't look at them. And I would send him again, and I'd never hear back. And I was like, you know what? It's really hard, and I think most business owners would find this. You have to keep the business running and running well, or no one wants to buy it. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to keep the business running well and do all the selling stuff yourself. So you need to have the business at a certain point that it's worth it for a business broker to take on, but luckily ours was at that point. So we interviewed several business brokers, and we ended up choosing one who we felt understood us and understood our market, picking a broker who really understood our business. And by that I mean a lot of business brokers really do primarily local sales. So bricks and mortar. I have a Togo's. I want to sell that Togo's. Who will buy my Togo's?
Okay.
And we were an oddity, because we had this little location, but the majority of our sales were not coming from our bricks and mortar store. So someone could buy it anywhere in the country, really, and run it, and still have the majority of our sales. So we were sort of online and bricks and mortar, and it's someone who understands what the online reputation is, and also that we were online listed for a number of really high-end manufacturers, which was a coveted position to get, and that they no longer gave out to any new online retailers. So we had sort of built up this brand equity that couldn't be replicated if someone were just to start now. And that's really important. When you're selling something, the more money you can command is directly tied to how easy is it to replicate what you've done in the marketplace. And we were in early enough and, had built our business early enough that there were a lot of new online retailers coming in, but they couldn't have what we had.
Interesting.
So anyway, we started working with this business broker, and what they do is they do a type of prospectus about your business, and it's I also recommend Selling Your Business for Dummies. It's a good way to just get a handle on what the terms are in the market and how to think about it.
No, that's a great recommendation. Good, thank you.
So anyway, they come up with sort of almost like a prospectus for your business, where they describe it, they describe all about the market, what differentiates you from your competitors, what are the advantages, what are the growth opportunities.
Okay.
And then they put it, and then they list it. And there's a number of different sites. In California, I think bizben.com is big. There's also businessesforsale.com.
Okay.
And there's and then he also took care of all the legality. Like when you're selling a business, you actually have to list it in some kind of registrar, like this paper, so that anyone who you owe money to can come find you for the money before you sell the business. It's a technicality,
okay.
But, want it to be legal. It's good to do those kind of things.
No, that's good. Those are good tips. Good advice. How long does it take then? How long do you hire a business broker for, typically?
So, typically, the contract is for 1 year.
Okay.
The average time to sell a business, I think, is somewhere between 9 months to a year.
Okay.
So business brokers want to have you for the whole year to sort of try it out. One other point I'll just say about choosing a business broker, that is, we were able to negotiate with our business broker. And right now the market is sort of difficult for business brokers. So if people do want to use them, feel free to negotiate.
So when you say negotiate, do they take a percentage of your sale, or?
They do.
Okay.
They take a percentage of the sale.
Do you know what the typical percentage rates are?
About 10%.
Okay.
So
you don't pay them anything else. They will just take the 10% fee of the sale then.
Yes, but a lot of times they have a floor. So in other words, if you're selling a $30,000 business, they won't do that for $3,000. They have a floor of like $8,000 or $9,000.
Okay.
So just to give, listeners sort of an idea of, if your business is really under $100,000 or so, you really probably want to be trying to sell it yourself through bizben.com or businesses for sale.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Sorry for cutting you off. Okay. So you're going through that process. You sold your business. How long did it take to sell your business?
So, that was what was really lucky and remarkable for us, is that we were sort of, I think it got listed in December, and we had a lot of inquiries right off the bat, and people who wanted to talk to us. What the business broker does is he can sort of field the first line, make sure people actually have enough money to buy the business.
Okay.
And if they seem like good prospects and they want to talk to the owners, then he'll arrange a conversation with us, with people. But we don't have to talk to people before they seem like really good prospects.
Okay.
So we're not fielding calls every day the way he was about our business. And then he said to us, no one's going to make an offer until you have year-end numbers. So you have to believe we were pushing our accountants so hard. We need those year-end numbers, get those year-end numbers. Because everyone wanted to make sure that you haven't decreased in business.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Now, we did get those numbers, and we sent them out to the interested buyers, and I think within that week we had 4 offers.
Wow. That's great. Were you just thrilled beyond belief? Were you surprised, excited?
Well, at first we were completely thrilled, because to be honest, the offers were more than we expected, so that was great. And more than our broker has sort of cautioned us to expect.
Okay.
And then because, of course, we had multiple offers, you have a situation where you can negotiate. And you come back to people instead of just taking the first offer you get and say, well, there's actually been some other interest. Would you be willing to go to this amount? And so we sort of picked our best offer, negotiated with them, but we had a backup offer meanwhile the whole time.
Wow, that's incredible. That's very exciting.
It was really wonderful, and especially it was in like 2009. No one was selling businesses at that point successfully, so.
How long does that take? So you hired a broker. How many months later did you actually sell your company? And then how long does the transaction take place?
So all of this stuff is really variable. As my business broker says, I can do things as fast as you want them. You just need to get me the things I need.
Okay.
And since I was a motivated seller, I got him all the work and the numbers that he needed. So I think we might have probably sometime in October, we said, I want to work with you.
Okay.
In December, he had everything he needed and got the business listed. And then in January, we got offers once we had the numbers, so probably mid-January. And then we were really fortunate because the offer that we had was all cash offer.
Oh my gosh.
That there didn't have to get any financing.
Right.
A lot of offers are contingent on financing or they're even seller financed. So you sell it at sort of a reduced price and they pay you back through time for the profits of running the business.
Wow, that's incredible.
So we didn't have any risks. So because of those things, we had a really short period. I think it was like 60 days, so we closed in March.
Okay.
So that was in some ways the hard part because you've been running this business for 5 years. It's really been your identity and your baby and your love. And then it's like between January and March, and all of a sudden it was like gone. And there were things to wrap up. I mean, we had a good month and a half, 4 to 6 weeks of wrapping things up and closing out the space and everything because the buyers who bought it were actually in Florida. So they moved the store to Florida.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so there is still a physical location.
There is still, yes.
Okay, so interesting. Okay, so you go through that process and huge congratulations to you. It's no small feat to build a business, to sell it, have kids, oh my gosh. Very motivational to hear that. I mean, did you really do it between 9:30 and 3? Were you working on this at nights too?
I was working on it at night.
Yeah.
I was.
Okay.
I don't recommend it to everyone, but I think you need to find what the right balance is. I will say that I worked the hardest between October and March, getting it ready for sale and doing the sales process. That was sort of a heinous 6 months of my life.
Okay.
But before we went into the sales process, I'd work on creating clear boundaries between work and home and when I was willing to work and when I wasn't, and having date nights with my husband and having my phone off in the evening so it wasn't dinging with emails or texts or anything.
Right. I noticed it, you use the word too, fortunate a lot, and things have seemed to go smoothly, for you in growing your business. I'm wondering what some of the challenges that you had were and how you overcame those, or what you would have done differently.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think one of the challenges is it took a while for me to realize how much numbers matter.
Okay.
And it matters that you have good numbers for your business, that you really know how much you're selling, that you know how much things cost, that you know how much you're making. Same with pay-per-click. How much are you paying to get that person to your website? Because if you're paying more than you're getting sales from that person, that's just a total loser proposition. So I think that was one of the most important things, to really pay attention to your numbers and really be aware of them. The other is to, especially, I think for retail and wholesale businesses, that inventory matters. You really don't want to have too much. I think in the beginning, I had this mindset that I needed to have everything the moment the customer wanted it, and that would make us special. And what I learned as time went on is that customers are willing to wait for things. Shockingly, babies aren't usually born overnight. And, so there's usually some lead time that you have. And, people are willing to wait for the right product, the right thing. So it's important for you to manage your inventory because that's the amount of cash capital you have tied up in your business.
Right.
And I think if I had to do it over again, I would have managed my inventory better in the beginning.
Okay.
And also I could have gotten rid of losers. I think I got emotionally attached to products. I thought, this is a great product. Why isn't it selling? I love this product. But if customers don't love it, who cares?
Yeah.
You need to just dump losers and move on. And I think that's true whether you're a wholesaler or a retailer or, whatever you're doing, even service business. Dump the loser client. They're not working for you. But, just cut your losses. I think is a really good thing to remember.
That does sound like a good one. And then, am I cutting out again?
No. I was just going to say one more thing.
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Oh, I think the other thing that's important is if you want your business to be growing, to have that mindset that you're growing and be willing to hire appropriately. So sometimes we actually had someone who managed our pay-per-click account. It's a firm that we hired. We paid them, I don't know, $1,500 a month just to manage our pay-per-click. So did we have that money easily in the beginning? No. But once the pay-per-click got going and it had good results, then yes, it paid for itself. So you make investments, you hire out, and you also keep a close eye, is that really working? Mm-hmm. The same way you dump the loser products, dump loser employees, contractors who aren't producing for you.
Okay, good. Thank you. So tell me a little bit about, you've given a lot of good advice on what you've learned throughout this process. Tell me what you're doing now, what Success Reboot is, and a little bit more about your new venture.
Sure, I'd love to. So what I'm doing right now is I am helping busy professionals and entrepreneurs really handle the strains of growing their business, making more money, but also taking back control of their life. Because what I find for a lot of entrepreneurs is that they start their business because they want more freedom. They want a lifestyle that working for someone else doesn't allow them. Mm-hmm. And they want control sort of both over their time and their work product. And what they find is that the reality is that they're working harder and more and they feel more tied and chained ever once they're an entrepreneur. And I don't think that's the way it has to be. I don't think that's the way it should be. And really what I want to do is help entrepreneurs so they're living out their vision of what they want their business to be. And also work with professionals because I believe a lot of professionals in today's workplace function like entrepreneurs. Like if you think of lawyers who have to build their own practices, or managers who have to manage their group like it's almost like a little business within a bigger, larger company, they have many of the same challenges that entrepreneurs face, which is that they have people to manage, they have numbers that they want to keep increasing, i.e. profits, and, they have a limited amount of time, and most people have families and things that they want to do besides working all the time. So what I do is help people develop skills, both time management and, how they bound setting, how they function in the world, so they can build the businesses, build the life they want.
Okay, so how did you come to this particular business? Because you had a sales or an online commerce store. How do you make that transition to consulting and coaching? And what drives you? What made you decide this is the next business that I want to be doing?
I think I mentioned before, but I just really wanted to work with people in a deeper way and help people. Mm-hmm. And while I had fun with the product, Let's Go Strolling, they're cute. Who can resist them? But, at the end of the day, I wanted to work that changed people's lives and made their lives happier. And I felt like in the beginning when I started Let's Go Strolling, I was able to work with people to find that perfect stroller. They were so excited, and I felt like I was having that impact. Mm-hmm. But as a business grew, I just became more of a business owner, running the numbers, checking the inventory, making sure the website ran smoothly. And I really took that personal connection with people and really changing people's lives for the better.
Okay.
So in, my coaching business, I'm really getting back to what I love doing, which is just working closely with people and creating a supportive partnership with them so that, they have sort of someone on their side who they can turn to and help them, make their lives better and grow their business.
Okay, interesting. And so I also noticed that you have a PhD from UC Berkeley in economics. That's a good thing to mention, I think, for what you're doing now. You have the business side.
It's actually in marketing, but it's
it is in marketing. Okay, sorry, I read that wrong. So you definitely are very qualified between your education and your previous business experience. I'm wondering, as a marketing person, which is basically my background, I noticed your website's very interesting, and I've seen a lot of websites like this, and I wanted to see if you could shed some light on it. So your website is basically one page, and you can continually scroll down to get more information, but it doesn't look like there's any other links, and you have a video talking about what you do, and then a sign-up form for, what was it? It's 3 books and an audio tutorial, the Reboot kit. So I'm curious, tell me a little bit about why you chose that layout for a website, and what you anticipate it will do, or why it's good, or so forth.
Well, the website I have now, I would say, is clearly the quick and dirty website.
Okay.
In the industry, I think it's described as squeeze page, which is, you're trying to get people's trying to squeeze people's email addresses out of them. And, at this point, really, I'm just looking for a way to keep communicating with people. My website is not as big as I would like it to be, and I'd love to spend more time to develop the website, but just the same way I advise other people to be mindful of their time and where the payoff is. I am my own business, too. And I spend time coaching clients. I spend time, trying to find helpful newsletters, information, content that will help them. That's why I've created the Success Reboot kit people can get for free by signing up on my website. So I'm trying to create meaningful content for people, and so my website has taken a little bit of a backseat in terms of development.
Okay, that's so funny because we didn't talk about that before, and I've noticed that there are a lot of companies that you said quick and dirty, but I feel like, from what I've heard, it's a very good marketing tactic to just try to get people, give something of value away to get their information, and then you can follow up or, at least give them some information about you and your program. So I thought it was smart. I was sitting there thinking, God, I'm putting so much time and effort into in my head constantly with my site in the background, but maybe it just needs to be simple,
I heard a great quote recently, which I think is wonderful. It's that imperfect action beats perfect inaction every day. And I think it's a good quote to live by, and it's definitely a good quote to run a business by.
That is. Well, I thank you for that. Maybe we'll wrap up there. We'll end it with your quote, and I'll just give a little wrap up now. For sharing all of your successes and challenges, you've been very successful, and it was great to hear some of the challenges that you've overcome, and you gave a lot of good information on manufacturing and marketing and working as a partner. And how to go about those things. So thank you for your time, and can't wait to hear how it all pans out. Thanks, Jo.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
Bye.